Hello children, and welcome back to your English class with me, Sir Ellis. And I hope you have all done your home assignment. And I believe I do not need to check right now. Anyhow, today we are going to learn a new topic called regular and irregular verbs. And as I've mentioned before, this particular topic called verbs is very vast. Vast means many. Alright, there are many kinds and forms of verbs. So we have to pay extra attention when we learn these verbs. And here, before, we have learned types of verbs and kinds of verbs. Right now we are going to learn forms of verbs. Alright, so that's the difference. Try to know the difference. Alright, the types and kinds of verbs and the forms of verbs. Okay, so here, regular verbs and irregular verbs. When we conjugate verbs, we will find the change that takes place is a bit different in the second form. So the second form of the verb plays an important role when we learn regular and irregular verbs. Here we find the word conjugate. This might be a bit new for you, but the word conjugate means give the different forms of what? A verb. This is the meaning taken from a dictionary. Alright. So right now also when we learn these regular verbs and irregular verbs, we are going to conjugate verbs. In the other lessons also we have conjugated verbs, but you did not know that we are conjugating verbs. And when we change a present tense into a past tense, we are conjugating the verbs. Alright, so we are going to see how to change that. Alright, how to change the verbs. In grammatical term, it is called conjugating, the change that takes place in the verb. So conjugation of verbs. When we conjugate verbs, we conjugate it from the first or the base form. We have this 5 forms of verbs. It's forms, alright, not types. Right now we are learning forms of verbs. We have the base form, the past form, the past participle, SES or IES forms, ing form or continuous form, and sometimes we call it verb 1, verb 2, verb 3, verb 4, verb 5. Okay, do not get confused. See, there are some formulas. Sometimes you will see V1 subject plus V1 subject plus V2 plus object, like that. Okay, so do not get confused. But right now we are going to learn how to conjugate verbs only. We will not learn how to make a sentence with it. That we will leave it for the next class. Okay, so here we have this 5 forms of verbs here. Let's see. Accept turns into accepted in the second form of the verb, which is a past tense, and another word, and accepted turns into accepted again in verb 3 or in the past participle form, and accepted will turn into accepts with an S in the fourth form of the verb, verb 4 or SES or IES form, and in the fifth form of the verb or the verb 5 or ing form or continuous form, it will turn into accepting. Alright, accepting. Okay, so that's how we conjugate verbs. But for this regular and irregular verbs, I want you to focus on the 2 rows or the 2 columns. Here, regular verbs. Let's see. Here, in the base form or the first form of the verb, we have accept, and in the second form or the past form we have accepted. So what is the difference here? We have added the word, the letters ed, which turns it into a past tense. Alright, so act also acted, admit admitted, behave, behaved, brush, brushed, chew, chewed, clap, clapped, exercise, exercised, enter, entered, hope, hoped. Right. So we conjugate the verb hope into hoped. Alright, in verb 2 or in the past form. So that is called regular verbs. The word that ends with an ed in the past tense. Alright. Accept turns into accepted when we turn it into a past tense or into the second form of the verb. It ends with ed. So those kinds of verbs are called regular verbs. Alright, that ends with ed. In the simplest form, we can explain it like the word accept. The base form turns into a word that ends with an ed. Alright, that's the simplest form. And in irregular verbs, here we have 5 forms again. Arise, but here see the difference. From the second form the difference comes. Alright, arise will turn into arose. Alright, not arised anymore, not with an ed anymore, but in the past tense or the second form of the verb, it turns into, we conjugate it into arose. Alright, and in the third form of the verb or past participle, we have arisen, and in the fourth form we have arises, and in the fifth we have in ing form or the continuous form arising. What difference did you find? Here awake also we conjugate it into awoke, not awaked, awaked. No, awoke. The past tense or the second form of the verb is awoke. It doesn't end with an ed anymore. So those kinds of verbs are called irregular verbs that does not end with an ed. Right, here in the past participle also it's different. Awoken. Know will turn into knew, K-N-E-W, and in the verb 3 it will be known. And knows and knowing will be the same. Leave also will be conjugated into left, not leaved, L-E-A-V-E-D. No, the past will be left. Okay, so do you know the difference now? Make also will turn into made, M-A-D-E, made, and the past participle is made. Lose also lost, not loosed, L-O-S-E-D. No, but lost. Build, B-U-I-L-D, not builded, but it turns into, we conjugate it into built. D will turn into T in the past tense, built. Sleep also will turn into slept, not sleeped, sleep it, no, not ed, slept. Speak also not speak it, will be spoke. Right. Draw also drew, D-R-E-W. So those kinds of words are called irregular verbs. The past tense without the ed are called irregular verbs. Understand? So you also again focus only on the 2 rows or the columns. Arise, arose, awake, awoke, know, knew, leave, left, make, made, lose will be lost. When we turn the base form into the past, it will be lose will be lost, not L-O-S-E-D. It will be L-O-S-T. Alright, so those kinds of verbs are called irregular verbs. Understand? Build also built. Build will be built. Sleep also will be slept. And speak also will be spoke, not speak it. Draw also not drawed, D-R-A-W-E-D. No, D-R-E-W, drew. Okay, so those are irregular verbs. It is very easy if you know how to turn this, how to conjugate the verb into regular and irregular verbs. It's a bit difficult if you don't memorize it. Sometimes you have to memorize this kind of words. Alright, it can become a bit difficult if you don't listen from the beginning. Okay, so here arise, arose, not arised, not with arised, but it's arose. But the regular verb, the base form will turn into a word that ends with an ed in regular, but now we are in irregular verbs, so the base form will turn into not ed anymore, but arise here, arose. Okay, sleep here in number 8, sleep, not sleeped, no, it turns into slept. We conjugate sleep into slept here. Suppose, let's say in a sentence, I sleep at night, we sleep at night. Alright, like that. But if we are going to conjugate this sleep into a past tense in a sentence, I slept at 10 p.m. last night. Not sleep it. But in the regular verb, we see accepted, ed. For the regular verb, let's try to form an interrogative sentence. Will you accept the offer? Will you accept the offer? So in regular verbs we will say, yes, I have accepted the offer. So we use the word accepted as a past tense. Alright, the word that ends with ed, that is a regular verb. But here in irregular verbs, let's see, leave. If I ask you a question like, let's say, let's form an interrogative sentence again, or a question sentence. When did he leave this place? Like that. He left at 9 p.m. last night. He left this place at 9 p.m. last night. You can say it like that, not leave it anymore. So when we say left, when we conjugate the verb leave into left, it is an irregular verb. So that's the only difference. It's kind of easy, but if you don't listen it from the beginning, it will be a bit difficult for you to understand or to conjugate the verb. Understand? So please pay attention. Next time, in the next lesson, we will learn how to form sentences with regular verbs and irregular verbs. Alright, and there are many more things to learn, but I just want you to know the basics of this regular verbs and irregular verbs. So I hope you have some ideas about regular verbs and irregular verbs now. Have you? And we will learn the details on how to use these two kinds of verbs in the next class. Alright, so let me repeat again. In the regular verbs, we turn the base form of the verb into another word that ends with an ed. But the base form that we conjugated, or that the base form that we change, will be a bit different. Like arise will be into arose. Alright, like that. Leave will be conjugated into left. Understand? That is irregular verbs. That is irregular verbs. Do you have some idea now? Okay, that will be all for now, and we will learn how to make sentences using these regular verbs and irregular verbs in the next class. But go through it again from the beginning and see the difference. And you can find this in the internet also if you want. In the next class I will give you some link where you can find this list of regular verbs and irregular verbs, the list where you can learn all the words. Alright, sometimes it's difficult to learn all the words in one time, but I will give you the link and you can learn it over and over again, or you can download it if you want, because we right now we are not having a regular class, we have this online class, so we cannot tell you time and again from this online class. But if we were in a normal class, we could have given you some lessons or some list like that, which you can write down in your notebook, but that is impossible right now. So the only thing that you can do right now is go back to the regular verbs, all the list, and go back to the irregular verbs and see the list, and from that try to learn it. Right, that's all for now, and I'll see you in the next class. I am not going to give you a home assignment this time, because in the next class we are going to learn how to conjugate verbs, or we are going to learn how to make how to make a sentence or how to make sentences with these two forms of verbs. Right, so that time you will have some home assignment. This time I will not give you any home assignment, and you will get the answers to your previous assignment tomorrow. All right, the assignment that you have in the previous class, in the lesson transitive and intransitive verbs. So I will give you the answers to your home assignment tomorrow. Okay, so that's all for now, and I'll see you in the next class, and thank you.